The dusty Memphis air hung heavy thick with the scent of honeysuckle and exhaust fumes. For 17-year-old Elvis Presley, it was the smell of home, of possibility, and sometimes of just plain waiting. He sat on the porch swing of their small house on Audubon Drive, his guitar resting against his knee, the worn wood smooth beneath his fingertips. He wasn't playing, not right now. He was listening, not to the crickets chirping or the distant rumble of a train, but to the music in his head. It was a wild, joyful mess of gospel hymns from church, the blues pouring out of Beale Street clubs. He wasn't old enough to enter, and the fast rhythmic beat of country tunes that played on the radio, all of it swirled inside him, mixing and churning, waiting to come out. Elvis was a shy kid, known more for his quiet nature and polite manners than for any grand ambitions. But inside a fire burned. A sound, a feeling, a voice that was uniquely his, desperately wanted to escape. He'd sing at church, his rich baritone surprising people, but he'd always blush and look down when complimented. He'd pick out tunes on his guitar, bought for him by his parents, Gladys and Vernon, who worked tirelessly to make ends meet. He loved that guitar more than almost anything. It was an extension of his dreams. He remembered the day he got it, a birthday present, a modest acoustic, but to him it was a golden chariot to another world. He'd spent hours, day after day, learning chords, picking melodies, and finding his own way around the fretboard. Sometimes his mother, Gladys, would come sit beside him, her hand resting on his shoulder as he sang for her, just for her. Those were his favorite moments. She always told him his voice was special. Vernon, his daddy, would nod from the armchair, a proud, quiet smile on his face. Their belief, simple and unwavering, was his constant fuel. Lately, the idea of recording a song had been simmering in his mind. Sun Records' small studio just a few miles away was a legend in Memphis. Sam Phillips, the owner, was known for discovering new sounds, for giving ordinary folks a chance to put their voices on a record. Elvis had walked past it a dozen times, his heart thumping in his chest, too nervous to go in. He'd heard that you could walk in off the street and pay a few dollars to record a private record, a gift for someone, a keepsake. It was an idea that both thrilled and terrified him. What if his voice, so powerful in the shower or just for his family, sounded thin and reedy on a record? What if it wasn't special at all? The thought made a cold knot form in his stomach, but the other thought, the one that whispered of possibility, was stronger. What if it was special? What if Sam Phillips heard it? He remembered a particularly sweltering afternoon, walking home from his job driving a truck for Crown Electric. The heat shimmered off the asphalt and he was drenched in sweat, but his mind was miles away dreaming. He'd seen a sign at Sun Records that day, something about, "We record anything." It had stayed with him. He had just gotten paid. He had a few dollars in his pocket, enough for a record. He didn't have a grand plan. He didn't imagine fame or fortune. All he wanted was to hear his own voice, truly hear it outside of his head, outside of the shower walls. He wanted to capture it just for a moment on something real, something he could hold, something he could share with his mama and daddy. That was the purest thought, the most honest desire. He stood up from the swing, the wood creaking softly. The sun was beginning its slow descent, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves on the oak tree in their yard. He looked down at his guitar, then back towards the distant hum of the city. Tomorrow, he decided, tomorrow he would do it. He would take the leap. A nervous excitement fluttered in his chest like a trapped bird. He imagined the studio, the microphone, the big intimidating equipment. He pictured Sam Phillips, the man who had recorded legends. He knew it would be a big deal, even if it was just for a simple private record. This wasn't just about making noise. It was about laying a piece of his soul down on wax, and that was a truly terrifying, exhilarating thought. He walked inside the screen door, slapping shut behind him. His mother was in the kitchen, humming a hymn as she prepared supper. The smell of fried chicken and collard greens filled the air. This was his world, simple, loving, full of quiet rhythm. but tomorrow he hoped a new note would be struck. A note that might just change everything, even if only for him. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the butterflies in his stomach. The dream, once a faint whisper, was beginning to sing a little louder now. The next morning, Elvis woke up with that same knot of nervousness and excitement. He put on his best clothes, a clean, pressed shirt, dark slacks, and his shiny shoes. He ran a comb through his slicked-back hair, making sure every strand was perfectly in place. He wanted to look respectable, professional, even if he was just a kid from the wrong side of the tracks with a guitar and a dream. He ate a quick breakfast, mostly pushing the food around on his plate, too anxious to swallow much. His mother, sensing his quiet intensity, just gave him a gentle, knowing smile. "You go on, son," she said, her voice soft and encouraging. "You do what you gotta do." She didn't ask what it was, just trusted him that trust was a powerful thing. He walked the short distance to Sun Records, his guitar case clutched tightly in his hand. The sun was already high, beating down on the cracked sidewalks. Each step felt heavy yet exhilarating. He passed familiar storefronts, houses, and the bustling main street. Today, everything looked a little different, seen through the filter of his burgeoning hope. As he approached the small brick building at 706 Union Avenue, his heart began to pound a rhythm against his ribs that rivaled any rock. And row beat the sign, faded but still clear, read, Sun Record Company. He could hear music faintly from within, a jazzy tune that made his toes tap. This was it. No turning back now. He pushed open the door and a bell jingled overhead. The air inside was cooler, darker, and smelled faintly of dust, old records, and something metallic like electricity. The front room was small, with a counter, a few scattered chairs and shelves stacked high with records. It wasn't fancy, but it hummed with an energy all its own. A young woman with kind eyes sat behind the counter, typing slowly on an old typewriter. She looked up, a friendly smile on her face. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice as smooth as warm honey. This was Marion Keisker, Sam Phillips' assistant. Elvis swallowed, his throat suddenly dry. Yes, ma'am," he stammered, his voice a little higher than usual. I'd like to make a record, a private one, for my mother." It wasn't entirely a lie, but he also wanted it for himself, and maybe, just maybe, for Sam Phillips to hear. Marion smiled. "Of course. What's your name, honey?" "Elvis Presley, ma'am." She wrote his name down on a small pad. "And what are you planning to sing?" He hesitated. He knew dozens of songs, but which one would truly show what he could do? I was thinking maybe a couple of ballads, something slow." He figured a ballad would be safer, less likely to reveal any nervousness. He just wanted to sound good. Marion nodded, used to the nervous energy of aspiring musicians. "All right, Elvis, just a moment. Let me see if Mr. Phillips is free." She disappeared through a door at the back of the room, leaving Elvis standing there holding his guitar case like a shield. He looked around the room, taking in every detail. The framed pictures on the wall of musicians he'd only heard on the radio, now seeming so close, the stacks of records, each one a piece of history. He could almost feel the vibrations of all the music that had been made in this very building. It was hallowed ground for a budding musician. His heart continued its frantic beat. This was more than just a recording. It was a whisper of a dream finally finding its voice, even if it was just for a few precious minutes. He closed his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath, trying to calm himself. When he opened them, Marion was back. A different kind of smile on her face. "Mr. Phillips is finishing, but he'll be with you shortly," she added. "He's always looking for something new." Elvis just nodded, unable to speak. Something new. The words hung in the air, a thrilling challenge. He felt a surge of courage mixed with his nerves. This wasn't just for his mama anymore. This was for himself. This was for that indefinable sound in his head that had been begging to be set free. The stage was set. The recording studio was small, no bigger than the living room of his house. The walls were covered in thick, sound-absorbing blankets, giving the room a muffled, quiet feel. In the center, a tall, gleaming microphone stood like a sentinel, intimidating and inviting all at once. Cables snaked across the floor, leading to a control booth separated by a large pane of glass. Elvis walked in slowly, his guitar still clutched tight. He looked around, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and apprehension. This was where the magic happened. This was where sounds were captured and turned into something lasting. Sam Phillips emerged from the control booth, a lean, energetic man with sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He had a cigarette perpetually dangling from his fingers and a calm, reassuring smile. "Well, hello there, son. Marion tells me you want to make a record for your mother." His voice was warm with a slight drawl, instantly putting Elvis a little more at ease. "Yes, sir," Elvis managed, his voice still a bit shaky. "Elvis Presley." Sam nodded. "Sam Phillips. Nice to meet you, Elvis. Come on in. Don't be shy." He gestured towards the microphone. "Just stand right here. You got your guitar ready?" Elvis nodded, fumbling with the latches on his case. He pulled out his acoustic guitar, its worn surface a comforting presence in his hands, took a moment to tune it, his fingers moving carefully over the strings, the small, true notes, a welcome distraction from his pounding heart. "So, what are you going to sing for us?" Sam asked, leaning back against the wall, observing Elvis with an almost casual intensity. Well, I was thinking my happiness, and maybe that's when your heartaches begin," Elvis replied, naming two popular ballads of the day. They were gentle, emotional songs, perfect for showing off his voice without too much fuss. Sam just nodded. "All right. Whenever you're ready, Elvis, just sing it like you mean it." He walked back into the control booth, pulling the heavy door shut behind him. Elvis was alone in the room, facing the microphone. Took a deep breath, the air in the studio feeling strangely heavy. He could see Sam and Marion through the glass, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the recording equipment. He felt their eyes on him, and suddenly his hands felt clumsy, his throat tight. He strummed a few chords, trying to find his rhythm. The sound was surprisingly clear and full in the quiet room. Closed his eyes for a moment, picturing his mama, her gentle smile, and the reason he was here. He opened them and looked at the microphone, imagining it was just her sitting there listening. He started to sing "My Happiness." His voice, usually so strong, felt a little thin at first, trembling slightly with nerves. He stumbled over a word, lost his place for a second, and winced. He could see Sam Phillips watching him, not with judgment, but with a keen, analytical gaze. He stopped, frustrated. "I'm sorry, Mr. Phillips," he called out, his voice cracking. "I messed up. Can I start again?" Sam's voice came over a speaker, calm and reassuring. "Take your time, Elvis. No rush. Just relax. You got a good voice, son. Let it out." Elvis took another deep breath, letting the kind words wash over him. He adjusted his stance, planting his feet firmly on the ground. He thought about the music again, the feeling, not just the notes. He thought about how much he loved to sing. This time, when he started "My Happiness," something shifted. The initial tremor in his voice smoothed out. His rich baritone filled the room, carrying the melody with a natural ease. He poured his emotion into the lyrics, his eyes half closed as he lost himself in the song. He could feel the music vibrating through his guitar, through his chest, through the very air. He moved through the first song, then launched into "That's When Your Heartaches Begin." With each note, his confidence grew. He wasn't just singing words. He was telling the story, his voice moving from tender whispers to powerful swells. He felt a pure joy in the act of singing, a release of all the music that had been building inside him. When he finished the second song, silence hung in the air. He opened his eyes, a little breathless, and looked towards the control booth. Sam Phillips was leaning forward, a small smile playing on his lips. He gave Elvis a slow, deliberate nod. "All right, Elvis," Sam's voice crackled over the speaker. That's good, real good. You got a unique sound there, son. Come on in here for a minute." A wave of relief and exhilaration washed over Elvis. He walked into the control booth, his legs feeling a little wobbly. Sam was rewinding the tape. Marion was smiling at him. "So you like country music, Elvis?" Sam asked, not really a question, more of an observation. "Yes, sir, and gospel and blues. I like all kinds of music." Sam nodded slowly, his eyes thoughtful. "Yeah, I can hear that there's something different about your voice, Elvis. Something I haven't heard before. You got a lot of feeling." Elvis just blushed. Looking at his feet, he had never had anyone analyze his voice like that before. It felt strange and wonderful-eyes. Bold. "Tell me, Elvis," Sam continued, picking up a cigarette and lighting it, "you ever sing anything faster? Anything with more rhythm?" Elvis looked up, surprised. Yes, sir. I like some of the rhythm and blues stuff. I like to move around a bit." Sam's eyes twinkled. "Well, I'll tell you what, we got these 2 songs down. You come back sometime soon, and maybe we'll try something a little different. Something that really gets your blood going." "What do you say?" Elvis's heart hammered with a new kind of excitement. This was a direct invitation from Sam Phillips. "Yes, sir," he exclaimed, a wide, genuine smile spreading across his face. "I'd like that very much." He left Sun Records that day with his 2 recordings on a freshly cut acetate disc, a physical representation of his voice. But he also left with something else, a spark of real hope, fanned into a small flame by Sam Phillips himself. The waiting game had begun, but it was a waiting game filled with new and thrilling anticipation. Leaving Sun Records that day, Elvis felt like he was floating a few inches off the ground. The acetate disc, wrapped carefully in a plain paper sleeve, felt heavy and precious in his hands. It wasn't just a record. It was a promise, a tangible piece of his dream. He walked home, the Memphis heat not bothering him at all. Every sight, every sound seemed sharper, more vibrant. The ordinary world felt extraordinary viewed through the lens of his newfound hope. He replayed the conversation with Sam Phillips over and over in his mind. "You got a unique sound there, son. Something I haven't heard before. And the most thrilling part, come back sometime soon and maybe we'll try something a little different." He kept telling himself not to get his hopes up too much. Sam Phillips was a busy man. He met a lot of aspiring singers. But deep down, a tiny, stubborn voice whispered, "No, this was different." He saw something. Back at home, Gladys was ironing in the living room, a soft gospel tune playing on the radio. Vernon was still at work. Elvis carefully unwrapped the record, his fingers tracing the smooth black surface. "Mama," he said, his voice a little breathless with excitement. "Listen to this." Gladys looked up, her kind eyes softening as she saw the disc in his hand. She knew this was important. Her eyes welled up with tears of pride. He carefully placed the record on the turntable. The needle dropped with a soft hiss, and then after a brief crackle, his own voice filled the room singing, "My Happiness." Gladys sat on the sofa, listening intently, a look of pure wonder on her face. Elvis stood beside her, listening to himself, really listening perhaps for the first time. It was strange. It sounded like him, yet somehow bigger, clearer, more real. He could hear the slight tremble from his nerves at the beginning, then the way his voice had steadied and grown stronger. He could hear the emotion he'd poured into it. It wasn't about fame or money, not yet. It was about his mama's pride, her love, her belief. That was enough for now. The next 2 days stretched into weeks, then a month. Elvis went back to his job, driving the truck for Crown Electric, delivering supplies around Memphis. He'd pick up his guitar every night, playing for hours, experimenting with different sounds, different rhythms. He thought a lot about what Sam Phillips had said about something faster with more rhythm. He started singing songs like Arthur Crudup's "That's All Right," putting his own swing into it, imagining how it would sound in the studio. He tried not to obsess over the phone call, but it was always there, a tiny, insistent hope. Every time the phone rang, his heart would leap. Every time it wasn't for him, a small wave of disappointment would wash over him. He knew Sam Phillips was busy. He knew the chances were slim. But the hope persisted. One sweltering afternoon, several weeks after his initial recording, Elvis was helping his daddy with some repairs around the house. He was wiping sweat from his brow when the phone rang inside. Gladys answered it. He heard her voice suddenly alert. "Yes, this is the Presley residence. Yes, he's here. Just a moment, please." She walked to the doorway, her eyes wide, a hand over the receiver. "Elvis, it's for you. It's Mr. Phillips from Sun Records." Elvis dropped the wrench he was holding. It clanged loudly on the concrete. He rushed inside, almost tripping over his own feet. He snatched the phone from his mother's hand, his own hand shaking. "Hello?" he managed, his voice sounding oddly high-pitched. "Elvis, Sam Phillips here," Sam's familiar voice said, calm and steady. "Listen, I've been thinking about you. Been listening to that recording you made. Try out some new things. You free next week? Maybe Tuesday evening?" Elvis's mind raced. "Yes, sir, I'm free. Anytime," Sam chuckled. Elvis slowly lowered the phone, a dazed look on his face. Gladys was beaming, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Vernon had come inside, drawn by the commotion, a curious expression on his face. "He wants me back," Elvis whispered, the words barely audible. "He wants to try new things." Gladys rushed forward and hugged him tightly. "Oh, my sweet boy, I knew it. I just knew it." Vernon clapped him on the shoulder, a rare, openly proud smile on his face. "Well, son, looks like your dream's getting a little closer, don't it?" Elvis just nodded, a wide, unstoppable grin spreading across his face. The waiting was over. The next chapter was about to begin, and he could almost hear the music already. The days leading up to Tuesday evening crawled by at a snail's pace. Elvis felt a frantic energy buzzing inside him, a mix of excitement and a deep-seated desire to prove himself. He practiced constantly, strumming his guitar until his fingers ached, singing songs with a faster tempo, trying to capture that rhythm Sam Phillips had mentioned. He focused on "That's All Right," a blues song by Arthur Crudup, and "Blue Moon of Kentucky," a bluegrass waltz by Bill Monroe. He loved the raw energy of the former and the mournful beauty of the latter, but he also sensed Sam was looking for something that blended things, something new. He tried to fuse the two, adding a driving beat to the country waltz, making the blues song more playful and light. It was an instinctive feeling, a way of singing that just felt right to him, even if it didn't fit into any one neat category. Tuesday finally arrived, stretching out endlessly until evening. Elvis put on his usual recording attire, his best slacks, a clean shirt, and his slicked back hair. His stomach fluttered with nerves, but also a growing confidence. This wasn't just a private recording anymore. This was a chance. He walked to Sun Records, his guitar case feeling lighter as if propelled by his anticipation. The Memphis air was still thick and warm, but a hint of evening coolness was starting to settle in. When he pushed open the door, the familiar bell jingled, and Marion Keisker greeted him with a warm smile. "Mr. Phillips is expecting you, Elvis," she said, her voice friendly. "Go right on back." He stepped into the studio, and this time he wasn't alone. Two musicians, Bill Black on upright bass and Scotty Moore on electric guitar, were already there. Bill was a jovial, easygoing man with a quick laugh, while Scotty was a bit more reserved, his fingers already dancing over the fretboard of his guitar. Sam Phillips stood nearby, leaning against the console in the control booth, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Elvis, good to see you, son," Sam said, stepping out to greet him. "This is Bill Black, and that's Scotty Moore. They're gonna play with you tonight. See what kind of noise we can make." Elvis shook their hands. A little star struck. These were seasoned musicians. He felt a surge of nerves, but also an eagerness to play with them. "All right, boys, Sam clapped his hands together. Let's start with something, you know, Elvis. What you been working on? Elvis hesitated, then decided to go with, That's all right. He started strumming tentatively at first, then putting more energy into it as Bill's bass joined in. With a deep, throbbing rhythm and Scotty's guitar added a sparse, sharp counter-melody. They played through the song, but it wasn't quite clicking. There was something missing, a spark. Elvis felt it, and he could see Sam's subtle frown through the glass. They tried a few more takes, but the magic wasn't quite there. All right, let's take 5, Sam said over the intercom. Go, get a drink of water, boys. Elvis, come on in here for a sec. Elvis walked into the control booth, his heart sinking a little. Had he messed up? Was he not good enough? Look, Elvis, Sam said, his voice calm, but with an edge of frustration. It's good, son, but it's not it. It's not that thing I heard in your voice that first day, that unique something. It's too proper, too polite. Elvis shifted on Phillips. I'm trying. I know you are, Sam said, his eyes piercing. But I'm telling you, it's in there. It's gotta be. That blend of country, of blues, of what you hear in church, but with a real fire. He paused, then picked up a record sleeve from a stack. You know, That's All Right by Arthur Crudup? Yes, sir, I've been trying to sing it. Don't try to sing it, Sam said, his voice rising slightly. Just sing it. Sing it like you don't care what anyone thinks. Sing it like you're singing it to yourself in the shower, like you're just letting loose. Find that sweet spot between country and blues. That thing. That's all you. Elvis nodded, absorbing Sam's words. He had been trying to fit into a mold, but Sam wanted him to break it. He wanted the raw, unpolished Elvis, the one who sang in his bedroom with abandon. They went back into the studio. Bill and Scotty looked at him expectantly. Let's take a crack at That's All Right again. And Elvis, he added, his voice clearer now. Just let loose. Forget about the microphone, forget about us. Just sing the song the way you feel it. Elvis took a deep breath. He thought about Sam's words. He looked at Bill and Scotty, and for the first time he really felt the music bubbling up inside him. He started strumming the opening chords of That's All Right, but this time something was different. It wasn't a practiced rendition. It was a spontaneous explosion. He sped up the tempo, giving it a playful, almost reckless energy. His voice, uninhibited, soared a blend of bluesy grit and country twang infused with a youthful exuberance. Bill instinctively picked up the new, faster rhythm, his bass thumping a joyous beat. Scotty, surprised at first, quickly caught on his guitar, adding sharp, clean fills that danced around Elvis's voice. The studio was suddenly alive. The sound wasn't just good, it was electric. Elvis moved, swaying with the music, his body responding to the rhythm. He wasn't just singing, he was feeling it. He was feeling it with every fiber of his being, a pure, unadulterated joy in the music itself. He finished the song, grinning a little out of breath, his face flushed. Silence. Then over the intercom, Sam Phillips's voice, clear and triumphant. Hold it right there. That's it. That's the sound I've been looking for. That's it, boys. Let's get that on tape. A wave of euphoria washed over Elvis. He had found it. The sound. It wasn't perfect, not by strict musical rules, but it was raw. It was real, and it was undeniably him. This was the moment, the true beginning. The recording session that followed was a blur of exhilarating energy. After capturing the magic of That's All Right, Sam Phillips wanted to try the other song Elvis had mentioned, Blue Moon of Kentucky. This time, instead of the slow, mournful waltz, Elvis, inspired by the previous breakthrough, sped it up, giving it an infectious, driving rhythm. Bill Black slapped his bass, and Scotty Moore added a bright, twangy guitar solo. They took a bluegrass classic and turned it into something entirely new, something exciting and unheard of. Sam was practically buzzing in the control booth. He knew he had stumbled onto something monumental. This wasn't just another singer. This was a force of nature, a blend of influences that defied easy categorization. He had captured lightning in a bottle. For Elvis, the recording process itself was a profound experience. He had been nervous walking in, but once the music started flowing, all his self-consciousness melted away. He was just a kid singing his heart out, surrounded by sympathetic musicians and a producer who truly understood what he was trying to do. He felt a sense of freedom he'd never known before. He wasn't trying to sound like anyone else, he was just being himself, and for the first time that felt like enough, more than enough. When they finished the session, the air in the studio was thick with a shared sense of accomplishment. Sam came out of the control booth, a wide grin on his face. "Boys," he said, looking from Elvis to Scotty to Bill, "I think we got ourselves something real special here, something the world ain't heard before." He turned to Elvis, his eyes gleaming. "Elvis, that voice of yours, it's got a fire, son, a real fire." He patted him on the shoulder. "Go on home. I got some work to do here. We'll be in touch." Elvis left the studio that night feeling utterly exhausted but utterly exhilarated. The streets of Memphis, usually so familiar, seemed to shimmer with an almost magical glow. He couldn't stop grinning. He had done it. He had laid down his soul on tape, and Sam Phillips had recognized it, embraced it. The next few days were a different kind of waiting game. Not the anxious, uncertain waiting of before, but a hopeful, buzzing anticipation. Sam Phillips was a man of his word. Elvis knew he was working on the recordings, meticulously refining them, getting them ready. He imagined the process. Sam, in his control booth, listening to the raw tracks over and over, carefully adjusting the levels, maybe adding a touch of reverb here, a bit of echo there, bringing out the best in the sound. He pictured the tape reel spinning, the delicate magnetic tape holding his voice, his music, his dream. He knew Sam had a vision for what he called the Memphis sound, a blend of black and white music, R&B and country that was unique to the city. And Elvis, with his diverse influences and undeniable charisma, was the perfect vessel for it. He was a white kid who sang with the soul of a bluesman and the heart of a country crooner, infused with the passion of gospel. He tried to go about his daily routine, his job at Crown Electric, helping out at home, but his mind was never far from Sun Records. Pictured Sam hunched over the mixing board, perhaps playing the tracks for Marion, getting her opinion, maybe even for a radio DJ trying to gauge their reaction. He knew how important this was, not just for him, but for everyone involved. One afternoon, a few days later, Elvis was polishing his shoes on the porch swing when he heard his mother call from inside, her voice urgent, "Elvis, telephone." His heart leaped. He practically fell off the swing, scrambling into the house. It had to be Sam. He grabbed the phone. "Hello, Elvis, Sam Phillips here," the voice said, clearer than ever. "Good news, son. We got a master cut. It sounds fantastic. I've already sent an acetate over to Dewey Phillips at WOBQ. He's going to play it on his show tonight." Elvis's jaw dropped. Dewey Phillips, the most popular, most influential DJ in Memphis, whose Red, Hot, and Blue show was a sensation. He played black rhythm and blues for a primarily white audience, something daring and groundbreaking. This was huge. "Tonight?" Elvis stammered, his mind reeling. "You mean on the radio?" "That's right," Sam chuckled. He was pretty excited about it, so you might want to tune in. And Elvis, Sam paused, his voice turning serious. "I want you to come down to the studio tomorrow, around noon. I got something I want you to hear, something important." "Yes, sir, I'll be there. Thank you, Mr. Phillips, thank you." Elvis was practically yelling into the phone. He hung up his hand, still gripping the receiver. Gladys was watching him, a hopeful, questioning look on her face. "Mama," he breathed, his eyes wide. "He's playing it. My song on the radio tonight." He pointed at the old radio in the corner. "Dewey Phillips, on WOBQ." Gladys let out a joyous cry, rushing to hug him. Vernon, who had just walked in from work, stopped in his tracks, a slow smile spreading across his face as he understood that night was a whirlwind of excitement. Elvis, Gladys, and Vernon gathered around the radio, listening intently, waiting for Dewey Phillips to announce his song. Elvis was a bundle of nerves, his leg bouncing, his hands clasped tight. What would it sound like? Would people like it? When Dewey's voice finally boomed, "All right, all right, all right, Memphis, you ain't heard nothing like this before. We got a brand new sound for you. A white boy who sings the blues like nobody's business." Then the music. The raw, energetic sound of his voice, combined with Bill's thumping bass and Scotty's sharp guitar, filled their small living room. It was electrifying. Elvis closed his eyes, listening to himself, really hearing it, on the airwaves for everyone to hear. It was real. But even with the radio play, the biggest moment, the most personal moment, was still to come. Tomorrow he would hear it on Paimo, the physical embodiment of his voice, etched onto a disc. And that he knew would be something truly special. The next morning, Elvis woke up earlier than usual, a knot of pure, unadulterated excitement in his stomach. Today was the day, not just for a radio broadcast which had been thrilling beyond words last night, but for something more personal, more profound. He was going to hear his own voice, captured and pressed onto a Paimok record, the very disc that had been sent to Dewey Phillips. He ate breakfast quickly, barely tasting the food. His parents watched him, their faces glowing with a quiet pride. They knew this was a monumental day for their son. Gladys gave him a quick, encouraging hug. There was no nervousness, only a profound sense of anticipation. The air hummed with possibility. He thought about last night, about hearing his song on the radio. It was surreal. He'd stayed up late, listening to Dewey Phillips play it over and over, the phone lines lighting up with calls from listeners, many of whom couldn't believe it was a white singer. That was just a preview. Today was the main event. When he pushed open the door to Sun Records, the bell above chimed a cheerful welcome. Marion Keisker looked up from her desk, her smile even wider than usual. "Elvis, good morning. Mr. Phillips is waiting for you in the studio." There was a definite buzz in the air, a sense of controlled chaos and triumph. He walked through the familiar front office, past the stacks of records and the framed photos, and pushed open the heavy studio door. Sam Phillips was already inside, leaning against the mixing console, a cigarette trailing smoke from his fingers. He looked tired, but his eyes sparkled with a triumphant energy. On the old turntable in the corner, a brand new 78 RPM record sat, its black surface gleaming under the studio lights. "Elvis, come on in," Sam said, his voice deep and warm. "Slept much last night? Dewey played the heck out of your record." Elvis just grinned, shaking his head. "No, sir, not much sleep. It was incredible. Hearing it on the radio," Sam nodded, a knowing smile on his face. "Yeah, it's a feeling, ain't it? But that's nothing compared to this." He gestured to the record player. "This is the real deal, son. Your voice, your music, pressed onto pylon. This is the master copy, what they'll use to make all the others." Elvis walked slowly towards the turntable, his eyes fixed on the black disc. It was so simple, yet it held so much: his dreams, his hopes, his very voice captured forever. His heart began to pound, a slow, heavy beat against his ribs. "Come on, son," Sam said gently, sensing Elvis's reverence. "Don't just stare at it. Let's hear it." He watched as Sam carefully lifted the needle arm. Time seemed to slow down. The anticipation was almost unbearable, a delicious ache in his chest. He could hear the faint whir of the turntable motor as it began to spin. The studio was quiet, save for the soft hum of the equipment. Elvis stood perfectly still, holding his breath. This wasn't a live performance, this wasn't a raw tape. The finished product, the tangible evidence of his voice. Sam slowly lowered the needle onto the outer groove of the record. There was a faint, almost imperceptible hiss as the needle made contact with the binu. Then a few seconds of silence, a tiny crackle, and then the vibrant, unmistakable thrum of Bill Black's upright bass filled the room, followed by Scotty Moore's sharp, clean guitar lick. And then, loud and clear, soaring through the studio speakers, came his own voice. "Well, that's all right, Mama." It was a voice he knew, yet it was also a voice he'd never truly heard before. It was raw, energetic, playful, and utterly, undeniably his. The sound was clearer, richer, more vibrant than it had been on the radio. It filled the small studio, enveloping him in a wave of sound. He stood there frozen, listening. He heard the slight imperfections, the joyous spontaneity, the unique blend of sounds that had come together that night. He heard the youthful energy, the honest emotion. It wasn't just music, it was a snapshot of his very soul, brought to life on a spinning disc. A warmth spread through his chest, starting from his heart and radiating outwards. His eyes, fixed on the spinning record, began to well up. He felt a profound sense of pure, simple joy, so overwhelming that it almost brought him to his knees. It wasn't about fame, not yet. It wasn't about money. It was about hearing himself, truly hearing, the voice he had nurtured and dreamt of, now real, tangible, and beautiful. He couldn't speak, couldn't move. He just listened, completely lost in the sound. The song played on, and with each note he felt a deeper connection to the music. To himself, this was it. This was the moment his dream truly became real. The moment Elvis heard his voice on Kaimoi for the first time. A sound unlike any other. Something shifted deep within him. It wasn't just the music filling the room. It was the realization that a piece of himself, a hidden passion, had been perfectly captured and brought to life. He stood there transfixed, listening to his own unique blend of country twang, bluesy soul, and gospel fervor. The raw, untamed energy of "That's all right" poured from the speakers, and he felt a thrill that went beyond anything he'd ever experienced. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the music wash over him. He could almost feel the vibrations of his own vocal cords, the strum of his guitar, the slap of Bill's bass, the twang of Scotty's electric. It was all there, perfectly preserved. He opened his eyes, a wide, genuine smile spreading across his face, a smile that reached his eyes and made them shine. He swayed slightly to the rhythm, then a little more, and soon, without even realizing it, his feet started to tap. His head bobbed, and a soft, spontaneous laugh escaped his lips. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It was a laugh of pure, unadulterated delight. He was hearing himself, and it sounded good, more than good. It sounded right. Sam Phillips watched him, a quiet, knowing smile on his face. He'd seen a lot of musicians hear their records for the first time, but Elvis's reaction was something special. It wasn't about ego. It was about genuine, childlike wonder. When the song faded out, leaving only the gentle hiss of the record player, Elvis let out a shaky breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes still shining. "Mr. Phillips," he said, his voice thick with emotion. That's just something else, ain't it?" Sam chuckled, walking over to the turntable and gently lifting the needle. "Yeah, Elvis, it is. It truly is. I told you, son, you got something special." Elvis nodded, still overwhelmed. He felt a surge of gratitude, a deep appreciation for Sam Phillips, who had seen past the shy truck driver and heard the fire within. He looked at the record again, picking it up gently, his fingers tracing the grooves. It was an ordinary disc, yet it felt like the most valuable thing he had ever held. Can I take it home?" he asked, a hopeful, boyish plea in his voice. "To show Mama and Daddy? They heard it on the radio last night." "But this is different," Sam smiled. "This one's yours. Son, you earned it. This is your master, and you better believe we're going to make a lot more of these." Elvis carefully put the record back in its paper sleeve. He wanted to run home to share this tangible piece of magic with his parents. He wanted them to hold it, to see it, to hear it in this pure, unadulterated form. He thanked Sam profusely, almost tripping over his words in his excitement. He practically floated out of Sun Records, the record clutched carefully to his chest. The Memphis sunlight had never felt so warm, the air never so sweet. He didn't walk home, he practically ran. His heart was still pounding, but now it was with an overflowing joy, a deep-seated happiness that radiated from every part of his being. He couldn't wait to see the look on his mama's face, on his daddy's face, when they saw the record, when they heard it again, this time from the source. As he ran, he imagined the record player in their living room, the needle dropping, and the sound of his own voice filling their home, just as it had filled the studio. He imagined his mama's tears of pride, his daddy's quiet, approving smile. This wasn't just his triumph. It was theirs too. They had supported him, believed in him, and now here was the proof, a physical manifestation of their shared dream. He burst through the front door shouting, "Mama, Daddy, you won't believe it! I got it! I got the record!" Gladys rushed out from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron, her eyes wide. Vernon stood up from his armchair, his newspaper falling to the floor. They saw the glow on his face, the shining eyes, the precious disc in his hand. Carefully placed the record on their old turntable, the same one he had used to play his first private recording. The hiss, the crackle, and then the familiar, electrifying sound of his own voice, powerful and clear, filled their small living room. Gladys covered her mouth with her hands, tears streaming down her face. Vernon, usually stoic, had a lump in his throat, a proud glint in his eyes. They sat on the sofa listening, completely captivated. Elvis watched them, his heart overflowing. This was the purest joy. The music, the dream, and sharing it with the people he loved most in the world. It was the beginning of everything. The next few days were a whirlwind unlike anything Elvis had ever experienced. The phone at Sun Records rang off the hook. Dewey Phillips was playing "That's All Right" constantly on We8BQ. And the reactions were pouring in. Callers were going wild, demanding to know who this new singer was, this white kid who sounded like he'd been singing the blues his whole life. Sam Phillips, ever the shrewd businessman, wasted no time. He quickly pressed more copies of the 78 RPM record, enough to send to other radio stations not just in Memphis but across the South. Local record stores started clamoring for copies. For Elvis, it was a dizzying chain. One day he was a shy truck driver dreaming of music. The next, he was the talk of the town. People recognized him on the street, pointing and whispering. Kids at Crown Electric asked him about his record. He was still the same humble, polite Elvis, but now there was a new confidence about him, a quiet glow. He spent most of his time at Sun Records, practically living there. Sam wanted him to keep practicing with Bill and Scotty, to develop their sound, to find new songs that would capture the same magic. They were a team now, a unit creating something new and exciting together. The buzz around "That's All Right" and its B-side, the reimagined "Blue Moon of Kentucky," grew exponentially. People were captivated by the raw energy, the blend of musical styles that defied easy categorization. It was country, it was blues, it was gospel. It was something entirely new, something thrilling and rebellious. One afternoon, Sam called Elvis into his office, a serious look on his face. Elvis's heart thumped. Was something wrong? "Elvis," Sam said, leaning back in his chair, a rare relaxed smile on his face. "The record's a hit. It's selling like hotcakes. Radio stations all over the region are playing it. We got something big on our hands." "Son," Elvis just nodded, overwhelmed. He still couldn't quite grasp the magnitude of it all. That was a whole different ballgame. Yes, sir," Elvis managed, his voice a little strained. I'd like that." Sam watched him, his eyes knowing. "I know you're shy, Elvis, but when you get up there with that guitar and that voice, it's going to be something special. Just like it was in here." He gestured around the small studio, the place where the magic had begun. The first few live performances were a revelation. Elvis was nervous, of course. His legs would tremble, his hands would shake, but the moment the music started, something took over. The raw energy that had come out in the studio translated directly to the stage. He moved instinctively, his body swaying and twisting with the rhythm, his voice soaring. The crowds, mostly teenagers, went wild. They screamed, they clapped, they danced. They had never seen anything like him. He was still the same polite, humble Elvis to his core. He still loved his mama's cooking, still went to church, still helped his daddy around the house. But now he carried with him the quiet knowledge that he had found his true calling. He had discovered a voice within himself that resonated with others, a sound that brought joy and excitement to people. Every time he heard "That's All Right" on the radio or saw a copy of the record in the store window, he would remember that moment in Sam Phillips' studio. The needle dropping the faint hiss, and then his own voice filling the air. That pure, simple joy of hearing his sound captured and real. It wasn't about the fame that was steadily building, or the crowds that were getting bigger, or the money that was starting to trickle in. It was about that fundamental, profound feeling of having created something true, something that came from his heart and soul. That moment, that first listen to his voice on Kaimai, remained the touchstone. It was the innocent beginning before the whirlwind of stardom took hold. It was the pure, unadulterated joy of discovery. The moment the young man realized his dream wasn't just a dream, but a tangible, audible reality. It was the day Elvis Presley, the quiet kid from Memphis, truly heard himself, and the world began to listen.